Welcome to Hey Ghost Hey, the podcast about ghosts, ghost hunting, and other paranormal phenomena of the Pacific Northwest. I am your host, Charles Crooks, owner, tour guide, and psychic of Bellingham Ghost Tours. We are here because I like ghosts a lot. Now let's begin. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back from the Halloween season. We have officially made it through. And so I can't believe that I made it through another year, especially as this is my third Halloween season of doing this completely solo. However, I think that it might be my last, doing it solo, that is, not my last season, at least as far as I know, of doing tours. But I think that starting in the new year, I might start looking out for some help for the Bellingham tours especially. So if you enjoy giving presentations about ghosts that are hour-long plus, please reach out to me. I'm probably not looking for help at least until the new year, at least once we cross over into January. I'm going to start thinking about the process, but if you have any interest or know of anyone that possibly might be a good fit as a tour guide for some ghost tours, please reach out and let me know. You can always send me an email at bellinghamghosttours@gmail.com. All right, on to today's episode. We are concluding my summer trip, and so we last left off in the Coupeville area, and then from there I went back up to Bellingham just to repack and regroup, and then my next adventure was down in Snohomish County in the Cascade Mountains. I had learned of the old mining town of Monte Cristo from a friend, and as soon as I had heard about it, I knew that I wanted to go on this little adventure. I'm always down for a good hike, but if you tell me that there's a ghost town at the end of it, that is a 100% yes, I want to go. And so I made that part of my road trip, so we're just going to jump right into the history of Monte Cristo itself. This information is coming from Western Mining History and from Wikipedia. So Monte Cristo is a ghost town northwest of Monte Cristo Peak in eastern Snohomish County in western Washington. The town was active as a mining area for gold and silver from 1889 to 1907 and later became a resort town that operated until 1983. In 1889, silver ore was discovered in a remote valley of the northern Cascade Mountains in the state of Washington. Access to the area was very difficult, and it wasn't until 1891 that the first wagon roads penetrated the valley and mining could begin in earnest. The settlement of Monte Cristo was established, and by 1894, over 1,000 people inhabited the town. A railroad finally reached Monte Cristo in 1893. Despite improvements in transportation, the rugged terrain continued to make access to the area difficult. In 1900, visiting USGS geologist J.E. Spur wrote the following about his trip to Monte Cristo. The mining camp of Monte Cristo is situated in the heart of the Cascade Range, but on its western slope. It lies nearly due east of the city of Everett and about 40 miles distant. It can be comfortably reached only by the Everett and Monte Cristo Railroad, which starts at Everett and terminates at Monte Cristo. Somewhat strangely, there is not even a good wagon road by which the camp may be attained. Aside from the railroad, only trails connect it with other parts of the country. The journey by rail from Everett to Monte Cristo is a tedious one, requiring from 12 to 24 hours. And once again, that was coming from USGS geologist J.E. Spur. And so the ore bodies at Monte Cristo proved to be erratic in size and grade. The steep terrain also caused difficulties, with avalanches frequently shutting down operations during the winter. A major flood did heavy damage to the town and the railroad in 1897, causing most residents to leave the town. The original mine and railroad owners had mostly sold by 1899. New owners attempted to revive the district in 1900, but work was sporadic and continued to decline until finally in 1920, an avalanche ended Monte Cristo's last mining operation. The town survived as a tourist destination for several more decades, but the county road was flooded out in December 1980, and the only remaining business in town, a lodge, burned down in 1983. That same year, a nonprofit group called Monte Cristo Preservation Association stepped in to save and restore the historical site, and you can actually see their signs still around the area to this day. All right, and so for my journey to Monte Cristo, I left from Bellingham, and I believe it took about a 2-hour drive, so it wasn't too bad. And then after I got to the parking lot of, I want to say it was Barlow Pass Trailhead, the hike itself was about 10 miles round trip. It wasn't a hard hike at all, especially as far as the elevation gain went, but it was definitely long. And by the time I hit, I think it was about 7 or 8 miles coming back, I was ready to definitely be done. And so if you do this one, make sure that you have the stamina to last the entire way through. And so luckily, it is a very clear path all the way to the town. You do have to cross a very wide, but keep in mind it was dry as it was summer, stream bed. And I can't imagine that crossing that in the winter time would be too easy, as you are very much in the mountains, and so having all snow, water, runoff, everything, I think it would be a little bit harder to access. But keep in mind, I went in August, so it was not bad, very easy to cross the stream bed and continue on the trail from there. So overall, definitely not a bad hike, just a long one. When I finally made it to Monte Cristo itself, you come into a wide field that has a few structures left behind from when it was the resort town in the 80s. And even though they are not from the original town, they still give off a very rustic and creepy vibe to them. And you can even still see the old railroad turnaround that was used to spin the massive rail cars around to go back down to the mountain. And so you can still push the turnaround and make it spin, which also makes a very large metallic groan and a lot of rusty squeaking noises that would echo throughout the open area. And so if you did not know what you were hearing or where that was coming from, it would definitely sound extremely creepy and not something I would want to hear if I was on my own and had to figure it out. But still cool nonetheless that you can still spin it around and play with it. And from that big open field area, you can basically walk a little bit further up along a path kind of along the water there, or the little river that runs through there. And that will take you up towards where the old streets of the town were. And so as far as any paranormal activity goes, I hadn't necessarily gone to this location for it being specifically haunted, other than it being known as a ghost town, of course, for abandoned town, more so than actually having ghost inhabitants. And so I still recorded my entire time there, and unfortunately, I did not get anything. But what I found to be one of the most interesting areas was going kind of up towards where the old homes were, up towards the more residential area up above that giant field. And I think with going up to that kind of more residential town area, what blew me away the most was just having the awareness that, one, there was a town there, but also how much has absolutely been reclaimed by nature. And so, even where these homes were, the topography of the land has completely changed. And so, you wouldn't even know that this was a very once flat area where all these structures were built upon. And if it wasn't for just the little signs that would tell the names of the homes or what homes were actually there marked along the street, then you would have no clue that there was even a settlement there. And of course, as you're walking around, there's all sorts of pieces of like the electrical, or I'm sorry, not electrical, of the railroad metal that you can see kind of sticking out of the ground here and there. Just other weird random pieces of metal sticking out of the earth as well. But other than that, and kind of like the structures around the main field, you really have no idea that an entire town existed there. I did also try to psychically sense into what I could feel for the area. And as far as any residual energy goes, or even intelligent, I really didn't feel much. The sense that I kind of got that whatever energies are there might be more nature or native related. But other than that, I did not even get a strong sense of residual energy that might have been from the mining town that once existed. Even though Monte Cristo is a good 10 miles out from your starting point, I highly recommend going there to check it out. It's just so wild to think that there was this town that existed so far into the mountains, and that the only way of really getting there was by train. And I really didn't know how long that train ride took until I started doing the research for this episode. So to then think that it took 12 to 24 hours just to go those roughly 40 miles is really crazy, and that would have been quite the journey. So luckily we don't have to go that far. It's only a round trip 10-mile hike, but definitely go check it out yourself. And so from there, it was time to go off to my next hotel, which was the Bush House Inn out in Index, Washington. Looking at the Bush House online, it appeared to be a historic hotel similar to the Captain Whidbey. I was staying in a single bedroom on a floor with shared bathrooms. I was prepared for a similar experience as both hotels were the same format, but I was absolutely blown away with how much nicer I thought the Bush House Inn was. As far as the renovations and restorations that were done to the building were concerned, I was very impressed. It felt like an old building, but it was redone beautifully. And I have to say, even the shared bathrooms were a much better experience, as the Bush House even has a few little solitary spaces where you can be completely alone, which was very nice, unlike the Captain Whidbey. And so I immediately fell in love with this hotel and the town of Index, and it is somewhere I will definitely be revisiting time and time again. All right, so let's just jump right into the history of the Bush House Inn, and all of this is coming directly from their website. The story begins in 1898 when Clarence and Olive Bush saw opportunity in what was then a rugged, rapidly developing frontier. Rail workers, loggers, miners, and adventurers streamed through the region, and the Bushes recognized the need for reliable accommodations along the rail lines and wagon routes. Their solution was the Bush House Inn, a surprisingly grand presence in such a wild landscape. The inn offered a spacious dining hall, simple yet inviting guest rooms, and a boisterous saloon where stories were swapped and local gossip thrived. Almost immediately, it became a hub for the community. In the early 20th century, as Index grew into a logging and mining town, the Bush House Inn hosted town meetings, social dances, and community events and fundraisers. It wasn't just an inn, it was the social heartbeat of Index. By the mid-20th century, Index's industrial base faded. With fewer workers and visitors, the inn slipped into deterioration. The building began to show flaking paint, warped and creaking floors, and broken windows that let the mountain winds inside. By 2002, it closed entirely, and many feared it would be just a memory. Hope returned in 2011 when a group of new owners and preservationists undertook the massive task of restoration. Their mission was to restore the Bush House Inn to its former glory while seamlessly blending old-world charm with modern comforts. The restoration was painstaking. Crews stabilized the original wooden framework, refinished the historic floors to their 19th century luster, preserved the inn's vintage architecture, and added subtle modern amenities like in-floor radiant heat and USB charging ports without compromising the building's authentic atmosphere. By 2018, the Bush House Inn reopened, its Victorian-era elegance revived. Now fully restored, the Bush House Inn operates as a living time capsule. Guests can choose heritage guest rooms that combine vintage accents with contemporary comforts. The setting offers panoramic mountain views, including the dramatic Index Town Wall and the Skykomish River. Okay, and so on to my experience at the hotel and what I had happen. So very similarly to what I did with Captain Whidbey, the first night I went in as blind as I possibly could be without knowing anything about the history of the hotel or anything about its haunted happenings. But all I did know was that I was in the haunted room this time for this hotel, and that was room 9. So again, didn't know anything of what was supposed to be happening within that room, but I knew that it was the haunted room. And so I just started out on the first night, primarily staying in my room and venturing out into the more common areas on the second floor where all of the shared bathrooms and those rooms are. There's also a giant common room, and so I checked that out too. And so between that, the hallways, and my room, it was very, very quiet. Almost as quiet as it was at the Captain Whidbey. So, of course, I had the same devices going. I had my recorder. I had the Ovilus. I had even tried the Ghost Box and the Flux Responder. And I always kind of like the Flux Responder because not only does it pick up EMF, but it also picks up motion. So you know that if there is something moving around you, it is picking that up and letting you know. And so both at the Captain Whidbey and at Bush House, I got not a single hit, not even false hits or anything that would make me think that it was a false positive. And basically that device did not go off at all. It was quiet. So overall, night 1 was very uneventful, unfortunately. But again, that is how it happens sometimes. So I looked into the history, or at least the supposed ghost history of room 9, and this is the story that I found. Alrighty, for this account, it is coming directly from U.S. Ghost Adventures and their website. So according to local lore, the ghost that haunts the Bush House Inn belongs to a woman named Annabelle. In 1907, Annabelle's husband Jacob was working in Monte Cristo mine northeast of Index. This area had once been rich with surface deposits of ore, but miners had struggled to find anything in recent years. Jacob wasn't deterred by the poor prospects, though. Instead, he thought he could revive the mine. Once the mine was revived, he'd hoped to make enough money to support his wife and raise children in Index. One day, Jacob was out in the mines while Annabelle awaited his return in the Bush House Inn. As she watched and waited, the 6 p.m. train arrived in town, bringing passengers to the hotel restaurant. These passengers didn't just bring luggage, they brought bad news. There had been a catastrophe. The rain of the past few days had flooded the mines. Annabelle was told that everyone in the mines had died. Distraught, she left her dinner and ran to her room 9. The next morning, Annabelle's husband returned to the room, ready to share how he'd escaped the tragedy, only to find another. Annabelle had hung herself from the chandelier. Some say he continued on, while others say he joined her in the afterlife. Now, claims of a woman in white dress walking down the halls are common at the inn. Those who see her notice she is often crying for her husband, with tears running down her face to her deeply bruised neck. There have also been claims of the silverware falling off the table where Annabelle ate. And so for night 2, I was a lot more excited to at least have a story that went along with room 9, the room that I was staying in. And even though I didn't feel anything that previous night, at least I had an idea of who to call out to for the second one. So on night 2, I did just that, trying to focus on Annabelle and her husband and the story of, I assume that both lovers were dead. Well, they would definitely be by now anyways. So I focused primarily on my room instead of the common areas as well, even though that there were reports of her walking down the halls. With the first night not having anything out there, I decided to focus it more on room 9 itself. And so, as I got going with the investigation, I used elements from the story to talk out to the room, to the spirits, to whoever, and it was still just as quiet that second night. And so, even with having those details, unfortunately, it did nothing to help me. Everything stayed quiet. Even if the Ovilus went off, it seemed to be given its usual gibberish. I got nothing on the ghost box and nothing on the flux responder either. And again, really didn't seem like I got any false positives either. So after that, I kind of just tried to sense in to see what I could feel psychically. And especially in room 9, it felt really clear to me, and it felt just really good and stable on an energetic level. And so I almost have to wonder if the story of Annabelle is more urban legend than actual event that happened at the hotel. And also, when I did ask the hotel themselves before I left, they said that there is no historical proof to Annabelle or her story, and that it is often passed around as like a tale from online, or that will sometimes be told as like another urban legend for the area. So unfortunately, I did not find Annabelle or anything at the Bush House Inn, but I would 1000% stay there again, especially if I'm passing through on Route 20. And lastly, I also had chosen to stay at the Bush House Inn, not just because of the reported stories of room 9, but also because it was very close to another hike that had a very interesting past, and that is the Iron Goat Trail. I first learned of the Iron Goat Trail and the terrible tragedy that happened there in my time at Boo. And for those that are new, that was my ghost hunting group that I was a part of for several years and unfortunately no longer exists today. But there are two main components to the Iron Goat Trail: a loop trail off Highway 20 that takes you by the old tunnels of the Forgotten Trail system, and another stretch that is famous for the 1910 Wellington train disaster. I definitely think that this is one of the more famous historic disasters in the state of Washington, and one of the worst as far as loss of life goes. The Iron Goat Trail was also featured on an episode of Expedition X, and if I remember correctly, they even caught a shadow peeking around one of the pillars of the snow shed. And so I wanted to do both parts of the trail, but unfortunately did not have time this go around. And so I did the first part, which was the loop trail that had all of the tunnels that you could still kind of take a peek inside of. And so let's first go into the history of the area and the train accident itself. So here we go. Okay, this history is coming from discoversnohomishcounty.com. In late February 1910, two Great Northern trains, the Spokane Local Passenger Train number 25 and the Fast Mail Train number 27, were traveling towards Puget Sound from the eastern side of the mountains. Due to heavy snowfall and avalanches blocking the tracks, The trains were forced to stop near Wellington, a small town housing mostly Great Northern Railway employees. On February 26th, an enormous snowstorm hit that forced the trains to a halt. The situation worsened as the hours and days passed. Telegraph lines snapped that cut communications, and coal supplies dwindled. Due to a thunderstorm with lightning flashes and strong winds, a series of avalanches occurred, making it impossible for the trains to continue their route beyond the Cascade Mountains. The trains remained trapped for 4 days. On March 1st, a massive avalanche struck the two trains in the middle of the night, plunging the trains 150 feet down into the Ty River Valley and later named the Wellington disaster. The avalanche caused the death of 96 people, making it one of the worst train disasters in U.S. history and one of the deadliest natural disasters to have occurred in the state of Washington. The Great Northern Railway took 3 weeks to repair the damaged tracks before it could resume train services over Stevens Pass, and it took several months to recover all the victims. The 23 injured survivors were sent to Wenatchee and Everett, while the bodies of the deceased were transported on sleds down the west side of the Cascade Mountains to trains that carried them to Everett and Seattle. Later on, the Wellington disaster led to the renaming of the rail town to Ty to improve the perception of the Great Northern Railway and minimize the impact of the disaster and its loss of reputation. To prevent the recurrence of such tragic events, the Great Northern Railway stopped producing wooden train cars and replaced them with large riveted steel cars. Additionally, the Cascade Tunnel, an 8-mile-long tunnel that runs through the side of the Cascade Mountain Range, was constructed. The tunnel was completed in 1929 and is still in use today, regularly carrying passengers on the Empire Builder route from Seattle to Chicago and freight throughout the United States. Alrighty, and so with a history like that, of course, I have wanted to check out the Iron Goat Trail for a very long time. And so on to the investigation. Basically, like I had mentioned earlier, I did the loop trail, and for that entire time I recorded, and unfortunately I did not find anything. And just to reiterate too, I would rather be honest about this instead of saying or making up anything that might have happened, because I would rather be genuine about it, so that way when we really do have the real stuff happen, it carries more weight. So it can be, again, very disappointing that nothing is found, especially on the entire road trip, to have no sort of evidence be prominent or kind of stand out from anything else. But that's life, and that is how it goes. So I recorded the entire hike along the Iron Goat Trail of the loop that I did, and even checking out some of the tunnels as you safely can, as there are definitely a lot of active dangers and collapsing parts of those tunnels still. So if you do go check them out, please do safely and at your own risk, and just be aware of the dangers within them. But I did not catch anything, so nothing going through the tunnels, nothing going through the trails, and so again, disappointing, but it's still a very cool place to hike and to check out. I know in the future I will absolutely be going back to the Bush House Inn and going back to the Iron Goat Trail. As I had mentioned earlier, I only got to do part of that, and that was just the loop part. So I have yet to even go check out the entire snow shed area where the train actually went over the cliffs. So very much more to be explored and to see what's going on. And I would love to even check it out at different times of year, because I think that can even have influence into the energy that exists there. And so, especially at these hotels, if there is just primarily residual energy, that is hanging around, I often believe that we need some sort of either event or kind of energetic initiation to kind of get these things going, especially if they are not appearing like clockwork. Sometimes we'll see hauntings almost kind of appear at the same time or around the same kind of conditions. But I really didn't get that sense with the Bush House. And so I'm just curious to see if that will change if I go a different time of year, different weather, maybe even full moon, as I have seen that these things and these factors do have influence. So I am definitely not done, especially exploring these last two locations, Bush House and Iron Goat Trail. Much more is going to happen there in the future. Unfortunately, do not know when. But I thank you all for being present and listening to my summer adventure. Again, I was really disappointed that I couldn't find any evidence throughout the entire time. But such is life and death. So next week, I am going to have two special guests, my friends Katie and Lauren, and they're going to recount some of their childhood stories of growing up in a haunted home out on the East Coast. And I do have to say, I think their stories are pretty remarkable and exciting. And that, my friends, is going to wrap up today's episode. Thank you so much for being here and for being open. As always, I really do appreciate it. I'm getting winter season for the ghost tours and ghost hunts up pretty much now. I know December is up fully, and January, February will be coming up soon. So if you do enjoy this podcast, please support by coming on the tours or a ghost hunt. You can always book a reading too, and I am more than happy to talk to you and answer your questions. If you have any, you can reach at me through social media or at bellinghamghosttours@gmail.com. All right, thank you so much, and until next time, stay spooky, my friends.